And I have Steppin, Marcus J. We're back. Thank you so much for hanging in there with us today to get in on the discussion. 804-447-0601. 804-447-0601. Sports Roundup. Sports Roundup. As we were coming out of the break, Big Rube and I were having a debate like we normally do.
Beefing.
Yeah, we argue. We argue because, he's just crazy, man. Last night, as I was home watching the New York Yankees, and we're going to talk about the Yankees weekend in Boston in a minute, but as we were watching the Yankees play in Texas last night, former Yankee, former National, former Detroit Tiger, former Florida Marlin, former Texas Ranger, Ivan Pudge Rodriguez retired last night as a member of the aforementioned Texas Rangers. He played a little over 12 of his 19 seasons, actually 21 seasons, for the Texas franchise, for the Texas Rangers, and he retired last night. I thought it was pretty cool to watch. Instead of him throwing out the first pitch, he declined to do so. Instead, he chose to go behind the home plate and throw the ball down to second base in a tribute to the honor that was bestowed upon him signing a one-day contract and retiring as a Texas Ranger. So Big Rube decided that he isn't sure that Pudge Rodriguez is a Hall of Famer. Now, this is a man who came up in 91.
First time all.
He comes up in 91 as a 19-year-old, and he catches Nolan Ryan, and he caught up until this year. He's catching kids that were born in, like, the late 80s. Nolan Ryan is born in, like, 47 or something. Seriously. This dude has been around a long time.
Dude, he's a first-name Hall of Famer. First ballot. I'm sorry.
First ballot Hall of Famer in his
Can I get some numbers?
In his 10 consecutive All-Star games, winning 10 straight Gold Gloves, captured the American League MVP in 1999 when he hit 332, 35 homers, 113 RBI with 25 stolen bases. How many catches get 5 stolen bases? He had 25. He had 35 home runs and 25. So basically, he's a 25-25 guy as a catcher in his MVP season. He helped the Rangers win the AL East, the AL West title in 96, 98, 99. Became a mainstay behind the plate, fan favorite. He threw out nearly 42% of the runner attempts to steal against him in his career. Now, we know baseball is a sport that if you're successful 3 out of 10 times, you go to the Hall of Fame. Dude threw out 42% of the people that are trying to steal on him.
How many catchers are in the Hall of Fame?
Well, here's the thing. Not a lot. First of all, not a lot. But his numbers are comparable with the likes of Johnny Bench, Yogi Berra.
How many home runs?
Lifetime, I'd have to look it up. I don't have it right in front of me. But
and don't get me wrong.
Actually, I do have it in front of me.
I'm not saying that he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame.
I do have it. Finishes his career. Hold on. He finishes his career with a 296 batting average, 311 home runs, 1332 RBI, in 2,543 games played. He's the all-time Major League leader with 27 games caught. He hit 300 or better in 10 different seasons and had 5 years of 20 or more home runs. Rodriguez played part of the 08 season with the Yankees. And then, of course, he also played in Houston, Washington, Florida, and I believe I'm missing at least one team. But
why is he being so bitter and I'm
not being bitter. I just need you to be informed.
Let me ask you.
Being bitter.
Let me ask him straight up.
I want to be informed.
Carlton, I'm going to ask him a direct question. Ruben, is Ivan Pudge Rodriguez a Hall of Famer? I don't care about this first ballot stuff because once you retire, you don't hit another home run. You don't throw out another runner. He's a Hall of Famer or he's not. Is Pudge Rodriguez a Hall of Famer, yes or no? And I don't need a long diatribe. No.
It's not a long diatribe.
Yes or no?
If you're saying his numbers are very comparable.
I just read the numbers to you. Is he a Hall of Famer?
If they're comparable to Johnny Bench, whose numbers I don't know, then yes.
Okay.
However, y'all attacking me like I should be drawn and quartered because I didn't know what his numbers were.
Let me put it to you like this. Timmy Kirkjian of the Four Letter Network has Pudge Rodriguez on his personal list as ninth of all time, of all catches, of all time. Ninth.
So there are 8 catchers already in the Hall of Fame.
Well, obviously, all of them are in the Hall of Fame, but one of them is Yogi Berra, who's got more rings than fingers.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
that's a different story.
Speaking of Yogi Berra, this weekend, New York Yankees caught the train up to Boston and participated in Boston's 100th anniversary on Friday on 420. Happy 420 to those of you out there who know what that means. But anyway, on 420, the New York Yankees traveled to Boston to play against them. They had a great ceremony. It was great. It was fun to watch. The Red Sox did an amazing thing by bringing back lots of the players, people who had played for the team, people who had managed the team, people who had worked for the team. They had gone as far back as bringing in Johnny Pesky, who the Pesky pole in right field corner is named after. He was a slight infielder who played for the Red Sox in the 30s and 40s. He's still around, thankfully. And they called it the Pesky pole because it's only about 306 yards down the line. And the only way he could hit a home run was to hit it right down that line. So they named it after him. All the way up to former manager Terry Francona, who the fans cheered loudly for when he was introduced. And we know that there was an acrimonious split in Boston with Terry leaving and of course, going into the broadcast booth for the Four-Letter Network. And now Bobby Valentine, of course, is the manager up there in Boston, Carlton Banks.
Yes, sir.
When you saw, and we'll get into the game in a minute, but when you see a team with a long, cherished history like the Red Sox, like the Yankees, like the Chicago Cubs, teams like that, as a sports fan, and we know that basketball and baseball aren't really your cup of tea, but you're a sports fan ahead of anything else.
Right.
So as a sports fan, how does it make you feel when you see a team that has 100 years worth of history that are able to put something together like that?
It shows you that they've had good team management, good team ownership. Even if the team ownership did switch hands, it still maintained a positive influence, and things of that nature come to mind.
Right.
You like to see longevity. You like to see consistency. Big Rube's over here trying to steal thunder again. I don't understand him. Yeah. Really, we're gonna get him his drink or shot later, medication. But it really does wonders. To me, I equate it to the Tom Landry, who was the Cowboys coach for umpteen years.
Was it 29?
Yeah, he's been there, forever coach. Yes. That's consistency that I like.
Right.
That's the only thing I can really equate it to.
Right.
Where, in basketball, teams have moved and things of that nature. But Boston, 100 years just of anything.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just how long they were in Fenway. I mean, they were in Boston for a lot longer than that. And just as a quick side note, a lot of people wonder why they had that green monster out there in the left field corner in Fenway Park. And the reason for it is when they built Fenway Park in 1910 and 11 and had it ready for 1912, they didn't calculate the amount of room that they would need. They built the home plate end of the field too close to the street. And so they didn't have room, of course, to make the fence the distance that they would normally like to.
Right.
Because the street was there. So the only way that they can account for that was to make the wall higher to still make it somewhat fair for someone right-handed or left-handed for that matter to hit a home run the requisite 360 or 70 feet that you would have to hit it to get it over left field wall. So I always thought that was an interesting story. And I remember being a kid and I wasn't really versed on the Yankees, Red Sox, I guess the history, the fighting that they had, over the years. And I always thought that Boston was one of the most fun stadiums to watch a game. I still do, actually, because the Green Monster is interesting because you don't really have to hit it that much for it to hit that wall. You know what I mean? That routine fly ball. And
that
Yankee
double
Stadium,
into the right, you got to be – makes a lot of right fielders mad.
Yeah. I mean, because right field, it's a lot of real estate out there, whereas in left field where that monster is, it's not much. So, anyway, all of that brings me to the game that came on Saturday. And, of course, real quick, it was fun to see some of the players that came back, like Jim Rice. It was good to see the ovation that Bill Buckner got, of course, since 1986 with the ball going through his legs and the Mets won the World Series. The guy was getting death threats for years, so it was good to see him come back and get a nice loud pop. But anyway, the game, Big Ro, I mean, the Red Sox, on a nice high. Of course, this was Saturday because the Yankees won the game on Friday when they had the ceremony. But Saturday's game is the game that we really want to talk about. The Yankees, behind Freddie Garcia, just got off to a miserable start, and we ended up losing the game by how much? What was it, 9-0?
Yeah, we were down 9-0 in the second.
9-0, and I think it ended up being 9-0 until I guess the fifth inning, and they ended up winning that game. What is it?
15-9.
15-9. So, what are your thoughts, man? When you see any team have a lead of 9 runs in baseball, I would guess, and Carlton, help me out with this, is the football guy. What would be the equivalent in football to a 9-run lead?
A 3-touchdown lead.
So basically 21, 28, something like that to nothing. And with it being the fifth inning, that's basically the equivalent of going to halftime 28-0.
Yep, pretty much.
Okay. Big Rube. What happened?
I mean,
talk to the Red Sox fans and tell them what happened.
It's simple. There's a reason why we're called the Bronx Bombers.
All right, well, we can be homers in a minute.
No, it's not even about that. 5 home runs after the fifth inning, and then a couple were 2. I think there was a 3-run homer. There were a couple 2-run homers. There were some singles.
Nick Swisher hit a grand slam. Mark Teixeira went from the left and the right.
Yeah. I mean, it was bombing. They just like, you know what? It's like the Red Sox, like, oh, we're up 9-0. We can go ahead coast and we'll throw it right down the middle. Have you lost all of your mind?
I saw a number, Big Road, where this was the second time in the modern era, which the modern era is known to be since 1900. It's the second time in 250,000 baseball games that a team blew a 9-point lead and lost by 6 or more runs.
Yeah, that was sad.
It wasn't sad.
A lot of it has to do with not so much me being a homer, because I want to really be fair with regards to the Red Sox, because I could play the big brother role, how we kick their ass every year. They won. They punched us in the mouth pretty good in 2004. But at the end of the day, our history versus theirs just not even really
we don't talk about them.
Debating. But I don't want to do that. I want to analyze it, a little bit more fairly. And doing that, I'm looking at a Red Sox team that in the last 42 games, they've won 11. And that's going back into last season. That's going back into the Terry Francona era. And the fans, because they love Terry so much, don't like Bobby. Especially when we talked about last week with Bobby Valentine saying the things that he said about Kevin Youkilis, who's their most popular player. So my question to you, Big Rube, is this. Watching the Red Sox play over the last 42 games, going back to the end of last season, watching the collapse, the fact that they didn't make the playoffs when they were poised to do so last year, what the hell is going on in Fenway?
They're pitching. It's simple. Is they're pitching. Because let's just be honest, man. They have one pitcher. He got hurt in September last year. He kind of hobbled his way to the end of the season. But ultimately, their starting pitching is terrible. It's sad because I'm sorry, it's not like the Yankees were getting errors and stuff. They scored 15 unanswered runs, 5 homers,
right,
a lot of good base hits,
right,
and that's all due to pitching.
Right.
When you get a big lead like that, in baseball you tend to just kind of to lay down a little bit,
right,
take it easy, that sort of thing.
Right.
However, they forgot they were playing the Yankees.
The other thing with that, in spite of the fact that they scored 9 runs, I mean, anytime you scored 9 runs, you're putting the bat on the ball. But the other thing is, if you look at the roster that they're running out there, it's not scaring anybody. If you look at their infield, with the exception of Youkilis and Gonzalez on the corners, and of course you got David Ortiz, Big Papi, is their DH, and of course Dustin Pedroia is probably one of the best ball players, me personally, I've ever seen when you consider his physical stature and the lack of athletic ability. Reminds me of an itty-bitty Larry Bird playing baseball, because the guy literally gets everything out of his swing. But when you consider all of that, I mean, what did I name? 4 guys? Yeah. Versus their outfield. You can't name
still
one.
Got Coco Chris, right?
Coco's been gone a long time. And Carl Crawford, who signed that big contract last year, had a subpar season last year. And this year, he started it on the DL. And they have no idea when he's coming back. And they have no idea when they're going to get Jacoby Ellsbury back in center field. So I don't know what's going on in Boston right now. They're 5-2. Their best pitcher, Josh Beckett, is 1-2. 5-10, I'm sorry. And their best pitcher, Josh Beckett, is 1-2. I see a long season in Boston. I do think that they'll get it together at some point, but I don't think they'll get it together soon enough for them to make a serious playoff run. But then again, we're talking about 15 games into 162, so a lot of stuff can happen. So we're gonna move off of